Wednesday night on the Matt Sager podcast. Just stopping in for a quick game of
What's in the box?
What's in the Box? Ask me anything. Matt at mattsager.com. What's my favorite movie? Is this thing on my neck getting bigger? What books did I read this summer? Today's question comes courtesy of Maria in Hoboken, New Jersey. It's still the case that all my contacts, 99% of them, be it Twitter, Facebook, email, what have you, are still coming from the tri-state area. This despite the fact that I was once a local New York disc jockey and am now podcasting all around the planet. Apparently, I'm a New York area kind of guy. That's fine. Maria's question, actually, much like the last edition of What's in My Box, is a throwback to the 5th episode of this podcast, in which I talked a little bit about my past, prior to being a voice actor / podcaster. I guess I can add that as an official title now. We're on episode 16. I worked in radio. I was a disc jockey, and before that, I worked behind the scenes at K-Rock and at Westwood One and all over the place, and the way I actually got my start was in the music industry. I was hired in the very early 90s, I think 91 or 92, to intern for the band The Red Hot Chili Peppers. So the question is, Matt, how the hell do you get to be an intern for the Red Hot Chili Peppers? And I love that question because the way in which I got in is more interesting, more relevant, more crazy than anything that happened during my actual internship. The way in which I was able to get my foot in the door is crazy, and I'll tell you as an anecdote, but I want to first give you a serious disclaimer here. This is an anecdote only. Do not try this at home. If I were to have done this in today's age, I'd be tackled to the ground, tased, even doing it when I did. The fact that I'm describing how it happened through a microphone from the comfort of my home, rather than chiseling it onto some prison wall somewhere, are a testament to what a great guy former Red Hot Chili Peppers manager Lindy Getz is. So I was a fan. Everybody was a fan of the Chili Peppers in the early 90s. I'd been a fan since I think I came on in the second album. I was aware of the first album, and honestly, I thought then and still think it's garbage. I think they think the same thing. They were on all kinds of drugs back then. That's not a secret. Their producer for that album was the guy from Gang of Four. He quit in disgust. I think if he'd had any idea that they'd one day end up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he would have suffered a massive embolism right there on the spot, because they were just lunatics, and they didn't have their shit together. It was a bad album. The second album was astonishingly good, especially in light of that. So I was a fan of that. It had a great cover of a Sly and the Family Stone song, and it had been produced by George Clinton, so it was very easy for me, especially as a sort of punk skate guy myself. I looked at these guys, I listened to these guys, and it was easy for me to relate. Then their third album came out, the Uplift Mofo Party Plan. Idiotic name, pretty good album for its time. They were working with producer Michael Beinhorn, who I think was the first person in the music industry, other than George Clinton, who believed in them at all. I know they were at EMI, and EMI hated them. There's a whole backstory there. It mostly involves the fact that they would run into boardroom meetings. This is from public knowledge and stories they've told me at various times. They used to run into boardrooms and shareholder meetings with their dicks out. That's not something that endears you to your record label. That's another thing. Don't try that at home either. But so Mother's Milk was out. That was the one that really broke them. Granted, Blood Sugar Sex Magic with Rick Rubin producing, that established them as giants. But they went from kind of underground to full mainstream with Mother's Milk. So we were grouping on that, me and a couple of friends hanging out at my apartment on McDougal Street, bored out of our minds, thinking of something to do. And somehow one of us had been made aware that the Chili Peppers were going to be appearing on Letterman that night. And I somehow was media savvy enough. I don't really know how, because I had yet to establish myself or have any sort of credentials or experience in entertainment. But I did know, maybe just because I was used to seeing throngs of people outside the theater. I knew that Letterman taped at about 5 o'clock. This was the old days when late night was still on NBC, broadcasting out of 30 Rockefeller Center. So if you've ever had this really dumb idea pop into your head and you verbalize it to a friend and you go off and have a dumb misadventure, maybe you go drive off and do donuts in the parking lot of a 7-Eleven for no good reason. Dumb people do dumb things. Sometimes it has bizarre, astonishing results. I looked at one of my friends and said, "Hey, are you doing anything later this afternoon?" She said, "No." I said, "Look, let's do something crazy." In the sleeve of the CD for Mother's Milk, it says that the manager for the band is a guy named Lindy Getz. Let's go to Rockefeller Center, 30 Rock, and tell the security guards, again, if you try this, you will be put on a no-fly list. Do not do this. I said, let's go to 30 Rock and say we work for Lindy Getz, and we must be escorted upstairs so we can watch the band play. And we were waved right through. It was a different time in New York City and the world. We were seated right up front, treated like very important people, and in fact, had a very awkward pre-show because, we said we were with Lindy Getz. So we were immediately pre-show taken backstage, taken into their dressing room, and had to sort of pretend like we weren't doing the most stupid version of the Thomas Crown Affair, Ocean's 11, in history. And the band was like, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. And the manager, Lindy, was like, hi, yeah, nice to see you. With this sort of look like, I know what you're doing and I just don't care. Which is an amazing attitude. I mean, just astonishing that he would have humored me like that and not just had me arrested is, I guess I made an impression. I do not know how. But so we acted like everything was normal, like, oh, hey, nice to see you. Now the NBC pages are going to escort you to your front row seats. And we watched the show. The guests came on. It was very fun to watch Dave and the whole Paul Schaefer band doing their thing live. But 58 minutes or so pass, and they come back from break, and we applaud. And I got to find this on tape. I wish I had it, because it would make a great drop sound effect. But Dave comes out and says, thank you all so much. And he says, I'm sorry to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who are bumped. We'll have them back at another time. And as he says time, right from the audience, you can hear a noise that sounds like somebody's having a stroke. I've just pulled off the heist of my career, the greatest scheme I've ever conceived of at that time. Obviously, I've had several schemes since, but you can hear me groan. I mean, it's like the song of an anguished whale, and Dave is startled. He looks to his left like, oh my God, Paul, are you all right? Did Biff stroke out? Oh, no. It's just some dick in the audience who has free seats making a stink. So I did not get to see them, but I was, after the show, once again ushered backstage and taken into their dressing room for this awkward thing where I have to act like it's not weird, that I've never met these people. I don't belong there, and I gotta sort of act like I do. I think the alternative would have been arrest. So I talked to the band, and I talked with a couple of the people who actually did work for Lindy, and then I talked to Lindy, who, after a few pleasantries, said, listen, if you want to actually come work for me for free, come out in the summer, intern for the band, intern for the management, run the fan club, be the best work you can do that pays nothing. So everything that happened from that, the internship, the relationship with the band members, the good, the bad, all of that still, as cool as it is, and it's very cool. I, in particular, think of driving around LA with a newly millionaire Flea with a Mercedes-Benz and a Fear I don't care about you, fuck you bumper sticker on it. But all that pales to the insanity of the fact of it all, and of Lindy's trust and generosity of spirit. And before the internship, he gave me and my friend, who I dragged with me on this bizarre adventure, VIP passes for both of us for 3 nights at the Roseland. The headliners were the Red Hot Chili Peppers, opening act Smashing Pumpkins, and the very opening act, you know, the one you don't want to be, the opener for the opener. It was a band nobody had heard of. They didn't have an album out yet, but boy did they put on a show, and pretty soon you couldn't get away from them. I'm talking about Pearl Jam. 3 nights watching these 3 bands do sound check and then perform live. Lindy was an amazing guy. Lots of great memories of Lindy Getz and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So thank you very much. This was an especially fun version of What's in the Box for me.
Oh, what's in the box?
Yes, and you can ask me anything, anytime. Email me, matt@mattsager.com. Hit me up on social media, @MattSager on Twitter. Facebook is The Matt Sager. My voiceover page is Matt Sager VO, and the podcast has a page now, too. It's facebook.com/Matt Sager Podcast. My Instagram is Real Matt Sager, and I'm even accepting phone calls at 646-535-4788. And for the rest of my social media links, my contact info, my voiceover reels, episodes of this podcast, and more, go to mattsagervoiceover.com.